And we kick off with some news about possible job losses at Fonterra. The Dairy Co-op's Hamilton-based financial division is looking at slashing roles with a proposal to see jobs outsourced to India and the Philippines in a cost-cutting drive. Fonterra wouldn't confirm news reports that up to 100 roles could be cut, but it said the proposal's about optimising efficiencies to support the entire business and to create financial value for its farmer shareholders. Waikato Federated Farmers Dairy Chair Matthew Zonderop says it's a risky move and he's unsure how much they'll actually save.
I can certainly understand from Fonterra's point of view what they're trying to do is, return money back into the farmer's pocket. But at the end of the day, there's a smarter way to do that than outsourcing those jobs offshore. We should be keeping that money in New Zealand. I mean, that's what this company is. It's New Zealand built, New Zealand made.
In April, Fonterra announced plans to close 4 plants in Waikato. 51 jobs will be impacted, although it's expected some of these workers will be redeployed to other factories.
News of progress this week on a new tool to help dairy farms slash their emissions. EcoPond is a new treatment system which promises to slash methane emissions. Oh, bugger. EcoPond, I'll do it all again. News of progress this week on a new tool to help dairy farms slash their emissions. EcoPond is a new treatment system which promises to slash methane emissions by up to 97%. It mixes chemical ferric sulfate with a farm's effluent, not too dissimilar to how drinking water is treated, and this inhibits the growth of methanogens which generate methane. EcoPond was first launched in late 2021 by Agri-Chemicals and fertiliser cooperative Ravensdown with help from Lincoln University and companies like LIC. It's currently being tested across a dozen dairy farms. Here's Lincoln University Professor of Soil and Physical Sciences, Keith Cameron.
We're working with farmers across the country to test out its performance in Taranaki, Waikato, Southland, Canterbury, etc., so that we can be sure that it will work in all of those regions and climate.
Meanwhile, a small dairy farm in Australia has begun sending supermarkets what it says is the world's first branded milk from cows fed with a seaweed that lowers their emissions of methane. The producer in Tasmania is now feeding 500 cattle with an oil containing the seaweed extract and believes the emissions from the herd are down by a quarter.
Designs for a new off-grid geothermal-powered glasshouse could help growers also reduce their emissions. Geothermal consultancy Upflow has secured $250,000 from MPI's Sustainable Food and Fibre Fund for its trial near Taupo. There are already commercial horticulture grow systems using geothermal energy in the region, but they rely on nearby power stations. Upflow director Paul Siratovich says their design will combine low geothermal heat with climate-friendly solutions.
If we drill wells, a couple hundred meters below the surface, we might be able to access more heat that can run these geothermal food systems that are also ideally going to be run in a self-powered module.
And a warning this week that the red meat sector is entering another tough time. Not only dealing with a lacklustre global economy, but countries turning their back on open trading. International trade expert Stephen Jacoby told a conference in Wellington a rise in non-tariff trade barriers would wipe out gains made in free trade agreements. He says New Zealand's done a lot to open doors for our goods around the world, and it needs to stick up for the rights it's negotiated.
What we're seeing is that as soon as the tariffs come down, a non-tariff barrier seems to pop up. Our industry is not alone when it comes to dealing with these non-tariff barriers. The government is focused on trying to address them, and they have a range of tools. In fact, last year we got rid of about $1.4 billion worth of non-tariff barriers. But the meat industry is saying that we got $1.5 billion of NTBs applying to the meat trade.
Our onion exporters say they're seeing early signs that New Zealand's free trade deal with the EU is working after the tariff on onions was scrapped in May.
Looking to the sea now, and lobster exports to China have come off the boil. New Zealand's rock lobster exports were worth a record $402 million to March 2024, and there were high hopes all New Zealand's seafood exports would continue growing, as they have in the past 3 years. But this year, prices are well down on last season. Lobster Exporters New Zealand Chair Andrew Harvey says returns are down about 25% following last year's post-COVID hiatus in China. He says a lot of Chinese wealth is tied up in the property market, and with it performing poorly, that's flowing through to lower spending in restaurants.
Our volumes are not too far behind the same time last year, but the pricing is well behind. Talk is all about the economy and consumer confidence, and restaurants trying to bring down their plate prices to keep people coming in.
Sticking with seafood, 7 million mussels will be placed in the Hauraki Gulf next week to combat declining numbers. It's the second time the Ngāti Manuhiri Settlement Trust will place the mussels in the Gulf as a way to help restore the number of mussels. Trust Chief Executive Nicola McDonald says there are not many mussels left in the Gulf.
In our grandparents' time, in the 40s and 50s, the Hauraki Gulf had a green-lipped carpet. It's hard to believe because we're talking about 1 million hectares of water space. But during that period of time, we dredged out the mussels, so we don't have any left. And what we've got to do now, and what we do know, is with sedimentation, climate change, it's all choking the Gulf up. We've got to get those green-lipped mussels back out into the Gulf.
And finally, some sad news this week. Tributes have been flowing in for a decorated New Zealand sheepdog triallist. Neil Evans died in an ATV crash on the family's North Canterbury farm on Monday. The New Zealand Sheepdog Trial Association says he made a significant contribution to the sport since the 1980s as a member of the Omahi Club. President Pat Coogan says he went to the top of the sport, reaching 16 national championship runoffs and winning 3 New Zealand titles, as well as being a selector and judge.
Like many in our sport, he tried to help as many as he could, and he was known for that. He's been consistent over a long period of time, in particular with heading dogs. Had the odd hunt away along the way, but principally largely with heading dogs. His legacy would be his ability to help people and transfer knowledge.
This is Country Life on RNZ National 101 FM.